What is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks with your hosts, Dylan and Davin. We hope everybody is having a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year as well. But with that being said, we're going to talk about the New York Knicks because they closed out 2024 on a very high note. They've won 8 straight games, but not be without the standout play from Josh Hart. Josh Hart has been really having a great season overall this year, but really the past couple games he's really stood out to me, especially because with the Knicks shooting struggles and all that stuff, Hart's tenacity and his energy is really what's grinding these Knicks through these wins, despite the poor shooting that they've, put on lately. Last night, of course, against the Wizards, he had a triple-double. He now has the 4th most triple-doubles in Knicks history, which is kind of crazy to me, really. I mean, he's only been with the Knicks for a little bit over 2 seasons now, so that's kind of crazy to me that he's already 4th on such a prestigious list. But regardless of that, he's also had those great hustle plays that he had against San Antonio on Christmas Day that pretty much got them the win in a very tightly contested game. He's just done a lot of great things this season, and we're just going to talk about that today. So Davin, first off, tell me how you're doing, and secondly, what are some of the things you've really noticed from Josh Hart this season compared to seasons past? Because this is a different version of him this year, in my opinion.
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for asking. And to be quite honest, the Knicks just too good of a team right now. And having a guy like Josh Hart as your glue guy, and I believe the Knicks' most consistent player, and I'm not going to say he's scoring the most or he's doing this on a night-to-night basis at the same time. Most consistent meaning every skill you can think of, he's putting it all together. And he's making an art every single game he plays. And that's kind of the way, expectations of Josh Hart have never been, substantial. At the same time, he always annihilates whatever expectations we have of him. So 10-6, we expect Josh Hart 10-6. That's a comfortable average, but he's averaging 14, 8, and 5. On any given night, he's leading the team in points, rebounds, assists, and even minutes played. So Josh Hart's that kind of guy. Over the last 4 games, like I say, he's been very impressive. 17 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 6 assists in his last 4 games. Knowing that the team needs him in certain situations, like last night, a team like Washington, and the night before that, and on Christmas Day, Josh Hart's performances the last week have just been phenomenal, and he's playing really good defense on the same side of it. So it's like to see this type of player be with the Knicks for a long time, and he's kind of the bridge between, I think, the balance between those all-star lineup you have, and then you have a Josh Hart, which is kind of crazy to say, but he's just never been an all-star, and that level of player that Mikal Bridges, those guys are. Then you have Josh Hart in the starting 5, and he just balances everything out so well. And he's honestly, like I said, the most consistent player for the Knicks, the do-it-all guy, and you can't say enough about how good he is for this team.
Yeah, and what I think is even crazier? The fact that those 14.4 points per game he is averaging is the fewest in the starting 5. I think that's remarkable, really. I mean, that kind of just, ties back to what you just said about how good this team is. I mean, they have too many guys that can go off on any given night. I think everybody was kind of just hoping Josh Hart would score 30 points yesterday, not just for, the guy who tweeted saying he's not going to tweet until Josh Hart scores 30, but also, just for the fact that we've seen everybody else go off for 30 plus in a game already this year. Hart's kind of that one guy who is yet to do that, but seeing what he's been doing this year, I'm more than confident that it will come at some point in the season. But I don't even care about that at the end of the day. I mean, that's cool for, all the gimmicks and stuff like that, but his impact everywhere else has just been tremendous. I mean, like you said, the rebounding, just phenomenal. 8.6 rebounds on the season, and this is a guy who's 6'4". This is a guy who's 6'4", and he also is among the league leaders in 2-point field goal percentage, and all the guys around him are centers. I mean, this guy is basically a center in a guard's body, which is really, it's impactful for us because, he's able to do all the things that a guard can do, such as play make and score. We've seen him do that dozens of times this year. Of course, the triple-double last night, as I mentioned, 23 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. He's averaging 5.5 assists on the season. That is, I believe that is second in the starting 5. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's second among the starting 5 with Jalen Brunson leading it. And of course, he's got the shooting as well. He's shooting 39.3% from 3 this year, which I think is remarkable. He's always been a pretty good shooter, a pretty efficient shooter at that, but I don't think anyone thought he was going to shoot nearly 40% from 3, especially after the preseason when he only scored 2 points in the entire preseason, and everyone was saying that they needed to start Deuce McBride over him, which I think now that conversation needs to be dead. As good as Deuce McBride has been this year, that's not a knock on Deuce McBride whatsoever. He's been great this year. Yeah, it's been kind of a rough past couple weeks for McBride, but overall he's been great this year. It's not a knock on him, but Josh Hart is too good to just put on the bench at this point. I think this is really a different version of him that we are seeing this season, as I mentioned in the opening, because this is a guy who, as we saw in the preseason, it didn't look like he was going to do a whole lot of scoring. It looked like he was just going to be, grabbing rebounds, making plays with the ball, playmaking, defense, all that. No, he's scoring the ball, though, too, at will. I mean, yesterday against Washington, he scored 14 consecutive points for the Knicks in the second quarter, good for a total of 17 in the quarter. I mean, Josh Hart's not even averaging 17 points per game this year, and he scored 17 points in a quarter. That just kind of shows you the kind of player he is, the kind of guy that can, go off at any given moment. This is a guy who gives you, of course, the energy with the rebounds, the off-ball defense, the playmaking, all that stuff. He's a Swiss Army knife for a reason. That's why the name of this video is Swiss Army knife, because he is the team's Swiss Army knife. But with that being said, also, I mean, he's just doing everything that you want him to do and more. I don't think I've always said this too. I don't care if he's averaging single-digit points. I don't care. If he's providing me the rebounds, the defense, the playmaking, all that stuff, and a couple threes here and there, that's all I can ask for. He's the fifth starter on the team. He's the fifth option in the starting five. He's not expected to get the ball a whole lot, but when he is getting the ball, he's making an impact. Of course, with the transition layups as well, I feel like he never misses those as well. He plays with such a high motor and a high energy that really jolts the starting five. It's why the starting five is starting to kind of get their rhythm going and their energy going. We've seen Mikal Bridges playing better of late. OG Anunoby kind of snapped out of his scoring funk last night against Washington as well, while of course providing the energy on defense. Josh Hart is the type of guy that fuels a team. He's the kind of guy that will fuel a team and get it going and really have everybody playing at its highest level. When they're starting to slump a little bit, Josh Hart makes crazy good plays that keep the Knicks alive and keep them energized and keep them going. I mean, we saw, as I just mentioned on Christmas Day against San Antonio, that was a very close game. That was, down to the wire, bunch of lead changes. Nobody held a double-digit lead that entire game. Knicks were up by 3 with like 30 seconds left in the game. They had the ball. They were just holding the clock out. They didn't really have the intention of trying to make a crazy play. They were just trying to kill as much time as possible. They missed the shot. Josh Hart gets the offensive rebound. They get the ball again. They still have a shot clock, so they got to put something up. Miss another shot. Hart comes flying in for the rebound. Game over. I mean, they didn't even give San Antonio an opportunity to try to tie the game or anything like that. He didn't even give him a chance. And when you got players like that making plays like that, that's how you win games. It goes back to what I said before. When, the Knicks have been struggling shooting lately. They have. They only made 4 threes against Orlando. They went 10 of 40 in the first game against Washington. They were a little better last night, but they definitely struggled in the first half. They started the game 1 for 10 from 3. So when a team is struggling shooting like that, you need to have energy guys. You need to have hustle guys that are, willing to make plays however you can, really, at any chance. Whether it doesn't matter how ugly it looks or how chaotic it looks, if you can make a play, make a play. And Josh Hart is making plays. That is what makes him so valuable. That's why he's honestly one of the most valuable players on the team. Even if he's not, giving you the eye-popping stats night in and night out, the impact he gives you doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. And that's why he's really important to this team. That's why he's important to the starting five. The Knicks cannot move on from him whatsoever. I know I've seen some people suggest that maybe he could be used in trade packages one day. No, never. You cannot trade Josh Hart. The Knicks are not the Knicks without Josh Hart. The Knicks are not winning 8 straight games right now without Josh Hart. They're not 23-10 without Josh Hart. It is that simple. I want you to have a chance to get some input on that, though, because there's really so much I could talk about him, and I think really you could agree with me on that, but I want you to have an opportunity to
Exactly, man.
more.
No, he's phenomenal. Exactly. The model of consistency really is Josh Hart. And like you said, great at executing as a scorer. We know about his playmaking ability, but when the defense gambles, leaves him open, or doubles someone else, he will score at will. Like you said, score at will. You saw him just go off for 14, 17 straight in the quarter there. And now defense doesn't know whether to leave him open or let's go ahead and let's guard him and then leave someone one-on-one with Karl-Anthony Towns on the island. So that's kind of the gamble you have dealing with Josh Hart. It's kind of what makes him such a great piece in this all-star cast of players. And that's why I say he's such an important piece there, the yin to the yang per se, because on any given night he can go off, and it's all based off matchups, all based off how the defense, whatever their game plan may be. And you saw that against Washington last night. You saw the fact, he goes off for, has a great game, 23 points. At the same time, they weren't guarding the guy. He's leaving open for threes. He's going to take them. He's going to make them. And that's kind of the player Josh Hart is. Big-time bucket for Josh. Big-time shot maker. We've seen him do it in the playoffs. We've seen him do it all season long. He's been really just, like I said, the model of consistency on this Knicks team. And as I said, the most consistent player, because every given night he's leading the team in some statistical category, no matter what it may be. And he's the one that's really making the difference, doing this game within the game, making the small plays that we need to win games. Like I said in the San Antonio Spurs game, grabbing rebounds, hustling. He's 6'4" out there. It doesn't matter who he's with. It doesn't matter. He's going to be the one to get the grab and go for the board. And that's just the type of player Josh Hart is, consummate professional. And like I said, this team is too good. 8 straight wins. And we can talk about Josh Hart now. We can talk about a lot of these guys right now. But the fact that Josh Hart, like you said, this isn't happening without him. And it gets better, which makes this very interesting for me. Like, this team's going to get even better. And it's crazy to even say that. But we're getting to that part where, like, January Knicks were last year. December Knicks, you can just forget all the month in the Knicks. These guys are just this good the whole entire season. They're that good. December, January, February, March, come the playoffs, this team is going to be that good. And any given night in the playoffs, for example, a night like tonight will happen for Josh Hart, where he goes off for 23-point triple double, and he's a legend in the city. You know what I mean? That's just the way he is, and I'm really looking forward to that, man. I'm really looking forward to what Josh Hart has to bring come playoff time.
Yeah, and I think the playoff thing is a huge thing because we've seen him kind of elevate his game in the postseason. We saw him do that last year where he was taking on much of a larger of a scoring role, and of course I think he was averaging like 12 or 13 rebounds per game or 11 rebounds, something like that in the playoffs last year, which was among the league leaders. And that's kind of crazy because again he's 6'4", he is a guard. He's even said it himself that he is a guard, even though he does not play like one whatsoever. He plays like a I don't even know at this point. He plays like just a hybrid player of all different types of positions, which is why he's such a unique player. Now, you know what I really want to say though? How about Leon Rose making the trade for Josh Hart a couple years ago, trading away a first-round pick and Cam Reddish for Josh Hart? Now, of course, I don't think anyone could have predicted that Josh Hart was going to have this level of an impact, especially right away. I mean, we saw his impact immediately when he came over 2 years ago, but I don't think anyone expected he would continue to have this impact and continue to play at a high level this long. But I want to ask you, Davin, was there ever a time where Cam Reddish was playing like this? Because I know a lot of Knicks fans were upset about that, and I just want to kind of
Oh my
ask you
goodness, man!
about
So
that
it
because
always happens.
obviously we know Cam Reddish was not that good with the Knicks, but a lot of Knicks fans were very upset at the time that we traded away Cam Reddish for Josh Hart. I want you to talk about that. Tell me about it.
You know, man, it's just the New York Knicks fans' emotional investment with players. I do respect that much about New York Knicks fans. The way they feel about these guys, RJ Barrett. It got to a point on Twitter I had to actually mute a couple of names. No disrespect to these players, but Knicks fans are just having emotional breakdowns on the timeline about these guys, and I can understand it. I can understand it. The Knicks didn't draft Cam Reddish, but at the same time, it's like I understand it. I understand it. So it's like that's just all it is. The emotional attachments these guys have. These when we start winning, things like that go out the window. Dante DiVincenzo, we saw people putting think pieces about Dante, but let's be real. If we see what Dante's doing right now, we see how our team's looking right now. We're not doing too bad. We'll be okay. So it's like things of that nature. It's just the name of the game. I remember Emmanuel Quickly. That in that situation, Emmanuel Quickly. Jesus, I could go down a list of players, but New York Knicks fans. That's why you gotta love them. You gotta love the love that they have for their team, that their players, really emotional attachments that they have with these guys, and that's why I can never knock any New York Knicks fan. But at the same time, Cam Reddish isn't Josh Hart.
No.
Let's be serious, folks. Yeah, so it's like we're not even going to get into that conversation. But the fact that we got that trade when we did, it's phenomenal what Leon Rose has done. I actually talked about that in an article. This guy, the trades he's been pulling off, the fact he's been getting these players, he's been getting the way he's doing. He's making business deals around the NBA. Maybe he was cool with these guys a decade or 2 decades ago. He's got a lot of friends around the league because these are heists at this point, man. This is crazy. This is insane. But I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all.
Yeah, and like I said, me personally, I had no emotional attachment to Cam Reddish whatsoever because of what you said. The Knicks didn't draft Cam Reddish; they got him in a trade, a small trade, and he didn't even play from the jump anyway. He barely got minutes to begin with, so. I personally never understood why many Knicks fans were so attached to him. I understand that there was the, he's 6'8" and has all the tools to be the next Paul George or whatever. I never saw it with him, though. I personally never saw it with Cam Reddish. I never saw it. He wasn't confident enough. He wasn't a good enough defender. He wasn't a good enough shooter either. There was none of that stuff to me that stood out as like, oh, he's gonna be Paul George. No. If anything, I was happy that they traded for him away for Josh Hart. I was happy about the trade. At the time I saw the first round pick and go, okay, you gave up a first round pick for Josh Hart, interesting, but clearly that was the right move. Clearly that's how much value he actually had. And of course, at the end of the day, you never want to just trade away first round picks, so I understand it, but at the end of the day, I'm not worried about that first round pick anymore, and I'm not worried about Cam Reddish anymore because look what Josh Hart is doing. I promise you, Cam Reddish would not be providing this type of impact. And I know we're not supposed to sit here talking about Cam Reddish because this is not about Cam Reddish at all. And Cam Reddish is, on the Lakers doing his own thing. It's all in his own thing right now. But we only have Josh Hart because of that. And there was a lot of people initially upset about the trade 2 years ago. And I just want to say to those people that are still upset, look at the team right now and tell me that we should still be upset about that because. There were obviously Knicks fans too that were upset when we traded away RJ Barrett and quickly for OG Anunoby. I mean, at the time, I will even admit, I was okay with trading away Barrett. I was a little upset about losing Quickly, though. I was. I thought Quickly was a fantastic six-man for the Knicks, and, obviously I knew he wasn't going to end up coming back because I knew he was going to be due for a big payday, but I still thought he would have been impactful for the team last season. I still will firmly stand on that, too, just given the state of the team towards the end of the season with all the injuries and stuff. Quickly probably would have been nice to have at that stage, but regardless of all that stuff, though, I mean, the trades were the right trades. They've clearly been the right moves. Look at how good this team is playing right now. Josh Hart is the main focal point of this episode, but it goes along with the entire team. We get Josh Hart from a small trade that didn't look like a whole lot of value at the time. It kind of just looked like a depth addition, right? When we acquired OG Anunoby, kind of the same thing. Obviously, OG was going to be a starter, but it didn't look like he was going to be, this like third option or absolutely defensive demon that he is right now. I think everyone knew he was a great defender, but I don't think anyone realized the impact he would actually have. And Mikal Bridges even, yes, I still think that trade is a bit of an overpay. It was like 5 first-round picks. It's a lot for Mikal Bridges, but at the end of the day, Mikal Bridges is an impactful player. I think the Knicks are confident enough in that. They're confident that the guys that they have traded for in the last 2 seasons can provide them winning seasons and possibly even a championship. And so far, the pieces are molding together and they look like a championship contender. Yes, I know that in December, they played a very weak schedule. I know. They played the Pelicans, the Wizards twice, a depleted Magic team 3 times. I understand that they had a very, very easy schedule in December. But good teams are supposed to do that to the bad teams. They are supposed to handle business and smack around these bad teams. You know what I mean? Yes, I understand that they got a very tough January and a very tough February, coming up. They got games against OKC, and then in February they see the Cavs and the Celtics at least once or twice. So I understand that their schedule is going to get a lot harder, and that's going to be a true test for this team. We're probably going to see some more losses at some point. They're not going to win every game forever. There's going to be games where, Hart might have a bad game or Bridges has a bad game, and you name it. Everyone's going to have bad games. But regardless of that, the moves that they have made in the past few years, look at the result it is right now. It has been tremendous. Even the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. I didn't even mention Karl-Anthony Towns because, we've talked about him so much throughout this season, but even looking at that trade as well, that is another one on the list of Leon Rose moves that have worked out really well. There are very few botched moves that he has made since becoming, the Knicks president back in 2020. There is very few. Very, very few. There's obviously there's a couple botched moves that I won't get into right now because it'll take too long. But regardless of that, all the moves that he had, most of the moves that he has made, and all the recent ones he has made have been spot on. Look at how great this team is right now. I think all I got to say to Knicks fans is just trust this process. It sounds ironic because that's a Philly saying, but look at this process right now. See how it's folding out. We have a window of championship here. We don't have to. It's not a championship or bust season right now. There is a window we have, and the window is wide open. And honestly, I think the Knicks have a fantastic chance to win the championship this season. But if not this season, in the seasons to come, when they really build chemistry and improve the roster, because they still can do that. They're not at the second apron. They can still improve the roster. It's smart money moves, smart business moves, and they've been doing the right things. I'm really happy with what they've been doing. I do want to give you one last opportunity to provide any more input you want to have on Josh Hart or any of these things that I just mentioned because, it really goes a long way with his impact and all the other guys' impact as well.
No, like you were mentioning how it's not, it's the whole entire rotation that's really affecting how great this team is. Josh Hart, phenomenal consistency. I want to give a shout out to Karl-Anthony Towns. We've saw him in MVP races in conversations. Last night against Washington, that fourth quarter he had was tremendous. The way he imposed his will in that fourth quarter, and the way the team's defense, because I talked about it in the article after that, they let Washington give him 132 points. I'm like, no, we got to come back Monday night. We got to change that around, give him. Let's make it maybe 100. But we don't need to have a Washington Wizards team imposing their will on the offense with a bunch of young guys and a bunch of first and second year players. So I loved the performance they came back with defensively last night. You'd love to see that. And Karl-Anthony Towns in the fourth quarter just owning Jonas Valanciunas for about 6 straight possessions was everything I wanted to see about this guy. He's the MVP of this team right now currently. Shout out Jalen Brunson. He just put up 55 the other night. We'd love to see that too. But I think that honestly, really quickly before we get out of here, this team is so good it might affect these guys on all NBA and MVP ranking type of things. Because this team is that good. Like when you got a guy like Jalen Brunson can put up 55, and you got Towns can do what he's doing on a night-to-night basis. I mean, it's going to cancel each other out, man. It's like when they didn't have Steph and KD on the All NBA team, the first team together, just because they just couldn't do it, which is crazy why they couldn't. But who knows? But at the same time, when it comes to All-Star votes and MVP votes and stuff like that, the run to get some All-Stars going on. But All NBA and MVP, we got to start having some realistic talks because this team is that good and they got too many good pieces, and you know how that goes, man. They're going to just kind of make that discredit, quote unquote, them as far as rankings go for personal awards. But we're going to have a great All Stars. We're going to have a great representation for the All Star game. I'm guarantee you that.
Yeah, it almost feels like they kind of have an all-star team already. It sounds like, a crazy talk, I know, but when you look at the way the starting five is, I mean, when they're scoring at free will and they're, doing the things they've been doing on a nightly basis, how are you going to stop them? I mean, we saw Jalen Brunson, a couple weeks ago have just an awful night. I mean, terrible. He couldn't hit a single shot to save his life, yet the Knicks won the game by 30. They won the game by 30, or they won the game by like 15, but were up by 30 at one point in the game. If that's the case, I mean, what are you supposed to do? When your best player isn't even on right now, you have the other guys going crazy too. What can you even do? What can you do? That's why the guys that are on their team right now give you the same type of impact that all-star players give you. I mentioned that with OG Anunoby a lot because I know that there's been a lot of, agenda pushing of OG being an all-star, and while, of course, I'm fully supporting that, I don't think he's going to be an all-star this season. I just don't think his stats are eye-popping enough, and nor do I think he's a popular enough player to really make the all-star team. But I don't care about that. We know Brunson and Towns are going to make the all-star team. That's we know that. That's like pretty much clear cut at this point. I don't really care about all that though. I care about winning a championship. I care about playoff success, all that stuff. We've gotten the individual accolades section of our rebuild, quote unquote, out of the way. Julius Randle made All NBA, and most improved player Jalen Brunson made All NBA. We've gotten the individual accolades part out. We've gotten that recognition now. Now we need to get to the playoff success. We need to get past the second round, make the Eastern Conference Finals, make the NBA Finals, etc., etc., all that stuff. But, all that stuff being said, I think really the Knicks are not the Knicks without Josh Hart. I think Josh Hart is really one of the most impactful players on this team. Everybody's impactful to this team. I think Bridges is just as impactful, Anunoby's just as impactful, but I think Josh Hart always goes under the radar just because of all the star power this team has, and he really, really makes a big difference for this team. He really does. It can't be understated. He really makes a massive difference. But I don't have much else to say. I do think this is a good place to wrap the episode up. We really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let us know what you think about Josh Hart or any of the other guys I mentioned in the comment section below, because I would love to hear about it. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page that you are watching the video on. You can follow our personal Twitter accounts. They are right there above our heads. And we will see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.